Djay Pro AI version 4 controller user interface. Djay Pro has changed the user interface only when a controller is plugged in. So in this video, I'm going to plug in my controller and show you guys all about it. Djay Pro AI version 4 finally came out, and they added so many new groundbreaking features and huge updates to the app. And the user interface when you're using a controller is one of those biggest changes, because the whole user interface is now different as soon as you plug in a controller. So I'm going to plug in my controller and show you guys what's different, why it's better, and why some people might not think it's better. So here we go. I'm using this Numark DJ to go to touch. It's one of my favorite DJ controllers. And I'm going to plug it in to the iPad using one of these adapters. This is a USB-C to regular USB, and it also has HDMI, so if you want to do video mixing, you can. And I recommend, if you're going to get one of these, to get one with a lot of USB ports, because now you have the ability to plug your microphone and your controller in at the same time to your iPad and control the microphone and all the different settings. And I'm going to make a separate video about that. If you go over here, audio device setup, you could change where the input and where the output comes out. You could have a booth monitor. So I'm going to make a separate video about that one. But now let's plug in our controller. Plug that in. And pay attention to what you see now. You got volume faders, you got filters here, you got these big play buttons. Now we're going to plug in the controller. We're going to lose some stuff on the screen, and we're going to gain some stuff. Also pay attention to what you see when the library is open. So that's the library. This is the mixer. This is the looper. And we are in Pro mode. Ready? We're plugging in the controller. 1, 2, 3. Boom. And you see that it looks very different. So what they've changed was no more volume faders over here. Why did they do that? Because most controllers like this Reloop Buddy have volume controllers that are very nice to use, and that's how you're going to control the volume if you're using a controller. 90% of the time, unless you're like me and always use this controller, I used to have my iPad set up right above this controller, and then I could control the volume with those faders on the screen, because these volume faders are kind of hard to use. So for using this controller, I'm a little bit like I miss the old screen, because I would use those volume faders. But most DJs are going to appreciate the new stuff that you gain. So over here, you could do a beat skip. So if you want to find where 4 bars, 4 beats, 8 beats, 16 beats, or 32 beats is in the song, you could do that very easily now with this button. A lot of controllers won't have that option, so now you can do it right there on the screen. This is good for getting your mixes precise. Like if you want to have one song end right before a drop, you can find out 16 beats back. I'm going to start this one and play that one. Another thing that you're going to see is the levels are visible right here. So some controllers like this one, and even the Reloop Buddy and other cheaper controllers, they won't have the levels on the screen, and it's very important to make sure your levels are even. So having it right there is great. Another thing that you'll notice is they got rid of the big play buttons. Every controller has their own play, has their own cue button. It's really good to hit. Even the smallest controllers like this will allow you to do that. So it's still on the screen. It's just right next to the jog wheel. And you could turn it on, turn it off, but it's a very small button. It's only there for like an emergency or... And then the cue button. You could use this tiny cue button if you wanted to, but every controller is going to have a cue button, so that's why they made it smaller. Another thing that is very important when you're using a controller is being able to scroll through your list of effects. So I don't think any controller will give you a view of the list of your effects. Some of them you could change them, but you're doing that blindly, and you have to just cycle through the effects like you're going like this, which is a lot harder than just opening this up and going here. So it's taking advantage of the screen more because they know you have the rest of the buttons on your controller. Now another thing is you could put the effect on with this button. You can also see at the bottom you have NeuroMix, Reloop, effects, and your mixers. Now you could also get rid of the jog wheel like that. It gives you more view of the waveform. You could do this in both modes. If you don't have a controller plugged in, you could get rid of the jog wheel if you want to and just have the waveforms. Some people like to have bigger views of the waveforms. And also in both screens, you could have the waveforms in the middle. That's how some DJs are used to it from different softwares, but I'm going to put it back to how it is when you just plug in the controller. If you open the library view, you have a really big view of your library, and then you still have all these features, the effects, the sync, the mini play buttons, the waveforms. And then also, if you press this button again, you have a full screen view of the waveforms, which is really good because if you're using a high-end controller or a bigger controller, then you basically have all the buttons and all the jog wheels and everything that you need. The only thing you don't have is the visual of the waveforms. So having a big visual of the waveforms is really beneficial. And then you could also see what loop is on. You could also see the effects, and you could do the beat skip, and you have all those features, but you get this big giant view of the waveforms. And the next thing that's really cool is the library. If you hit the library button here, boom, huge full screen view of your library, and then you could just load a song, and then you're back to this big full screen waveform view. And if you want, you could do a full waveform view in vertical mode. So I think that's a really great feature. Also, the half screen of the library is really good because you could do you can mix all the levels and all the other stuff on your controller, but now you have this big access to your library, to your playlist. You could keep everything really organized and see where everything is and still keep an eye on your levels, on your effects, and everything that you would want to see. So I'm going to unplug the controller and show you what happens when you unplug it. So it's a big change. It goes back to what we're used to. Let me know in the comments that if you wish they didn't do this, if you wish it was still the same with a controller or without a controller. Also, let me know if you think it's a great update. I'm kind of on the fence because this is my favorite controller, and it really doesn't help me out with that controller. But I guess as I get used to it, I'll learn to like it more like I did with the other updates. So thanks for watching. I'm going to make a separate video on the audio interfaces. So I'm going to show you guys how to do the booth output, how to put a microphone in, and how to change the headphone settings. So I'm really excited about that. So subscribe to the channel and give this video a like.